define the word inflation for me? Just think about the root word, inflate. What do you think inflation means?
Make big.
Make bigger?
Bigger.
Right, so to expand, okay? Inflare is the Latin root, and it's the condition of being inflated, right? Now, scarcity. Anybody want to take a stab at scarcity? What do you think that word means?
Lack of abundance.
So lack of, right? So something is scarce, it is not a lot of it, right? And an asset, if it's a scarce asset, what does that mean?
A lot of people want it.
They want it, and there's not a lot of it, right? What happens when there's not a lot of something that people want? What happens to the price? It goes up. When there's a lot of something, maybe people want a little bit, but whatever, there's a lot of it. What happens to the price? Okay. So 2 examples here. If you're in the middle of a desert, how much would you pay for a glass of water if you haven't had water in a day or so? Pretty much everything on your person that you could reasonably give someone, you would pay to have that glass of water, right? But in this building, you know, maybe for a bottle of water you pay $1 or $2, but I could just go to the faucet, right? So scarcity is very much defined by a lot of other things, but and when it comes to money, right? We have these multiple words that we're defining here because we need to understand what a gold standard is, what fiat is, what scarcity is, and how price and value is affected by these levers. So if the US government can just keep making more money, what does that basically do to the value of the dollar? So in everyday life, if you have dollars and the value is coming down, what does that mean for you?
You're
You have less dollars.
Basically have no control.
Well, you have,
Buying power is less.
you have less purchasing power. It's just basically the same as saying less dollars,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So every year, fiat currencies lose value. Some lose it fast, some lose it slow, but they all lose it over time. Every current currency in the world is fiat. There's nothing that's backed by gold anymore, or any scarce asset. Can anybody guess what the penalty is for counterfeiting dollars in America? Pretty harsh, right? You know, maybe you've seen. It's 15 years in prison and or a $5,000 fine, or both. But the Fed, the Federal Reserve, which is actually a private bank, most people think it's a public institution, it's not. They counterfeit dollars every day, right? Because they print more of it. They don't want you to do it because they have a monopoly on it. They want to do it. They want to control it. All right, so now let's look at some numbers here. We got 2020. This is going to I'm going to breeze through this because I don't want to take all your time. We got 2020 M2 money supply, which is basically all the dollars in existence, was at 15 trillion, 15T. Okay, we know what happened with the pandemic. Here, they started printing. Okay, so at the end of 2020, we had 19.5 trillion. Does anybody know what increase is? Any math buffs in here that know what that increase is? 40%, right? Math buff, I'm going to hit every time.
Where's the air horn?
Okay, and then, so Congress in 2021, we started 2021 with 20.5 trillion. So they kind of print a little bit every month is what they do, banking industry does. They just announced an infrastructure bill. Does anybody know what the dollars they're proposing for the infrastructure bill is going to cost?
3 trillion.
3 trillion, okay? Since then, since they've basically approved that, now it's passing through Congress and doing whatever, they talk about another 3 trillion. And they're going to keep doing it. They're addicts. What I think we can reasonably surmise is that by the end of 2021, we will be at 25 trillion. All right, now this is where it gets really interesting here. 15 to 25 trillion is a 40% increase. That's almost double. Now for conservative numbers, some people believe it's more than this, but I'm going to take conservative numbers of 33%, 1/3. Let's take a nice round number of 1/3. What that means for you is that if you make $100K a year, you now make about $67,000. If you have $10,000 in your bank account, you now have about $6,700. And this is literally within 16 months. Never in the history of the US dollar, or I would even say probably any currency in America. We've had multiple that have failed. Most people don't realize that. Greenbacks, Continentals, etc. Never have we seen an increase this way. Does anybody know what the average inflation rate has been since US dollar was came about? Does anybody know what that number is?
It's like 3 to 4%.
3 to 4%. That's what the Fed targets.
Sub 3%.
It's about 3%. We are at 33 at the low end, 40% at the high end, right? Now, this right here, the thing that gets me the most is, like, I understand if you're holding dollars and losing value, I get that. But if you're living on income, And now every dollar that you make is worth a fraction. You might have more dollars and think that you are actually more wealthy, but you're poorer. And you had no say in the matter. This to me, oh God, it just boils my blood when I think about it. And this is just for Americans. We're already the richest people on the planet. What about the poor farmer? He's got a couple $100, right? That might be his life savings because dollars in other countries are very sought after. It is the global reserve currency after all. Every time we make money, the government makes money, usually the elite get richer, but what about the average person here, right? Unless you own assets, you're not really benefiting in any way, you're actually getting hurt. But the poor farmer, what happens to him or her? It's modern day slavery, right? Because they have to work extra hard for even less. Simply put, the government within 16, I'll give you guys some space so you can see. The government within 16 months has stolen a third of your wealth, of your earning power, right? To me, that's just unacceptable in every fucking manner of the word. Now, if you own assets, there's a caveat. If you own assets, there's such thing as asset inflation. The thing is though, right, if it's not based on economic reality, and because people are plowing into these assets, you might think, my portfolio's up 40%, oh my God. Well, if they printed 40%, you're the same fucking place as 2020. You feel richer, but you're not. Yeah. Right? That's why you get these bubbles and you get people spending $1 million on a JPEG of a rock and all this other peak insanity bullshit. Okay? So Apple, just real quick to let you know about inflation, asset inflation. Apple's stock was 1.1 trillion market cap in early 2020. It's now 2.6 trillion. You're telling me that Apple, already an established company, basically tripled its value in 16 months? It's not based on economic reality. It's based on people flooding into assets that they believe is a store of value because they know that the dollar is depreciating away. Okay? So, does anybody know where inflation usually shows up first? Food. Can you think about why that might be the case? Think about the timeline of that supply chain.
Yeah, there's no way to hide the
pipeline is shorter and sell it faster.
Well, food goes bad.
Yeah.
So it has to go to customer immediately. Exactly. It comes out of the ground, the earth, or slaughter, and then it goes to customer. So if fuel prices or transportation prices or anything affects that food per pound, right, that farmer has to raise prices. Yeah. Or he very quickly goes out of business. And you don't really see a lot of rich farmers walking around, do you? I'll give you an example, food example. So I've been to 5 restaurants in 2021 that I used to frequent in 2020. Doc B's.
Yeah.
You must be psychic because that's where I'm going. So one steak I used to get at Doc B's was $21. This was probably 2 years ago. Then they raised it up a little bit pre-2020 to about 24. We went the other day with some friends. We were going to eat. We sat down. Water's about incoming. And I'm like, guys, this steak is $35 now. It used to be 21. It's 35 now. And I'm like, there's just a point here where I'm not going to spend the extra money. We got to go. And we walked out. The waiter probably came back to the table and was like, where'd these guys go? And et cetera. Hostess did not like us.
Hostess. Yeah.
Another example is the oven roasted teriyaki chicken wings. Used to be $9, right? They're delicious. We get them every time. They're $17.50 now.
Wow.
Do you want to know how much they charge for rustic salsa?
Rustic salsa.
$8 for chips and salsa. And then recently, Sean, a friend of mine, we went to Loro, and he graciously paid, but I did see the number before he paid before I could, bastard. He's like, I'm gonna pay. $87 for 4 protein plates.
Wow.
I was still hungry. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get another salmon and get a steak. I go up, I buy 2 plates, 40 plus tip. For 2 males to be somewhat satisfied, right? $120 at like a not that nice restaurant in Austin. Okay? All right. So inflation is here. It's real. It's been here for a long time. It's just been growing at a rate that you don't notice. Okay? Also, inflation gets pushed back onto the backs of the rest of the world. Right? Our prosperity and all this abundance we have is carried upon by the rest of the world. Just like you see Atlas holding the world above. Right? That's what the rest of humanity does. I would say it's safe to say that the U.S. government is the largest modern day slave owner there is. A little bit hyperbolic, but you know, at the end of the day, if you actually look what's going on, not really. Okay? Because what does the poor farmer have to do? He has to keep living, keep making food, trying to pay for water, trying to pay for his family, trying to pay for medicine, and every single time that we print more money because we need to save the American economy, blah, 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 he gets poorer. If that's not modern day slavery, then I don't know what is. So we've had currencies in America that have failed. The continental currency to fund the Revolutionary War, that failed. Hyperinflation. Greenbacks. Does anybody know what war that funded? They were called greenbacks because they were bright green. Civil War. That very quickly inflated and failed. So a lot of smart individuals believe the US dollar is past a point of no return. I happen to be one of those people that believe that. And that's why the Fed has no choice but to print. They can't control it. They've unleashed Frankenstein, and it's just this thing that gobbles up cash, right? And they don't want, because no politician wants to, they don't want to say, hey, America, it's going to be painful for 10 years. We're going to fix this, right? You don't get votes that way. So what do? They just keep fucking doing shit they're not supposed to. The Fed, actually, before 2020, was never supposed to buy assets. They're now allowed to literally buy assets, right? They just rewrote the founding documents, basically. This is how you get zombie companies that basically aren't profitable, but they just stay propped up because they have jobs. So what's going to happen is it's going to keep expanding until it comes crashing down. And when that does, the reality is most people are not going to be prepared. Unfortunately, the elite and those that have assets, they're going to become the new owners of everything, basically. Does anybody know the company that is currently buying up U.S. homes, competing with American home buyers? Anybody heard about that? BlackRock. $3 trillion in assets. They're getting free money from the government. They're coming into places like Austin, and they're bidding up everything because they want to basically turn everybody into a debt slave. So for me, Bitcoin is the answer, okay? If you have Bitcoin in 2020, you're now up probably 200 to 400%. Every year since its inception, it has been growing about 200% on average a year. Bitcoin is my answer to inflation, to corruption, to fiat printing, because no single government, entity, group, or even country can stop Bitcoin, can ban Bitcoin, can inflate Bitcoin, can censor Bitcoin. And just like with gold, gold has been the strongest money in existence because humanity knew that and they converged on that. So over 2,000 years, everyone knew that gold was money, right? Then we entered this fiat paradigm. The Fed and the US government has actively basically maligned gold because they don't want people to have it. They want to have control over money printing. They don't want people to know that the fiat is worthless and that gold is the real money. And now Bitcoin is 1,000 times better than gold. I don't have time to get into all that, right? But let me just tell you that I get goosebumps when I think about this. Bitcoin is the most exciting thing I've found in my entire life. That's how powerful it is. And it's not about making money. It's going to bring more freedom and sovereignty to more humans than anything ever. Even more so than the internet. Because if you look at the internet, what has the internet done? It's become a proxy for all the consolidated power structures that existed before the internet. Censorship, Facebook, the new tech entrepreneurs that run and control everything, that have more power with one click than anybody in the history of mankind. That's what the new tech oligarchies are. So I was supposed to have pictures here, and I was going to share some of these. Maybe you can kind of see these. So this is Afghanistan, right? We all know what's going on in Afghanistan. People fleeing, over 2.5 million Afghanis have already fled the country. Children being handed out. Say, please take my child. They can't be here, etc. And 13 soldiers recently died trying to get people out. Also, private people are fundraising money to send contractors in to save people while our government sits by and watches. Mm-hmm. So let me read this from you from Alex Gladstone's article, Finding Financial Freedom in Afghanistan, real quick. Okay. So in the fall of Kabul to the Taliban, Afghans are in dire economic straits. Already before the transition, as many as 14 million Afghanis did not have enough food to eat. 2.5 million people have already fled. Bank accounts are frozen. Economic activity has slowed. And remittances have been halted. Does anybody know what that is? Remittance payments. So you send money to your friend's family in another country. It's what most of the third world relies on. They send their family to America, they make US dollars, they send that back. And the monopoly usually is Western Union that has like ridiculous fees, 20%, 25%. Well, guess what? Western Union said, we're not going to serve Afghanistan anymore because we want to be cozied up to the Biden administration. Now, who gets hurt the most in that situation? Is the Taliban going to suffer? They're the guys who walk around with guns. They can take anything they want. What about the people that can't eat? The children? It boils my blood, but look at this. Further exacerbating the situation, the U.S. government has pressured the IMF to stop the release of $460 million in funds that would basically go to benefit the people, right? They've confiscated 99% of the country's foreign reserves, which is based in New York, so it's actually not gold. They just basically took it. And the World Bank has announced it's freezing $18 billion in aid. Again, why? Geopolitical reasons. And who suffers? The individual, the citizen. Now, Bitcoin solves this. You may not understand why that is right now, but when you understand Bitcoin, what it is and what it isn't, you realize that if the Afghan had their reserve currency as Bitcoin, they would laugh at America or Western Union or these people because nobody can touch it. It's immutable, it's uncensorable. You can't block it, you can't stop it. If Afghani citizens held Bitcoin right now, while the mass of them, some do, it's a very small percent though, but while the masses are starving, there's no economic activity, they don't know what currency to use, they're basically being starved out, right? Because all these geopolitical assholes are just playing fucking games. If they had Bitcoin, they'd be fine. And those that do actually right now are actually probably doing very well. And hopefully they're using that financial sovereignty and that Bitcoin is becoming more and more valuable there, and they're probably sharing with their friends and family communities. Okay, so we talked about that. Okay, so now I want to get to, because again, I want to go fast here. Mark Twain said, "The two most important days in your life are the day you were born." Does anybody know the rest of this quote? You want to fish for me? Hey, there you go. Sure, I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
I don't think that was Mark Twain, but you can quote me.
That was Mark Twain.
Quote Mark Twain on the
The day you
shirt.
find out why.
Motherfucker.
The day you find out why. So I guess I need a better eraser.
That's so good.
It's like this is the logical next.
So
Yeah.
for me, that happened 2 days ago.
It's like the reason why you know why you're born, why you're here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have printouts here, but I'm going to just use my not great handwriting. Okay, I want you all to do me a favor. So can somebody read that out? What does that say?
Better human company.
Now, do like they do in the movies, where everyone's like, ooh, ah, and they all look at each other. Ready?
Ooh,
Oh, it feels good. Yeah. Yeah. All right. It really means nothing to you, but thank you. That makes me feel better. So, teach a man to fish, and you can what?
Feed me for a day.
I mean, feed
A day?
Yeah.
All the days.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank
You
you.
didn't say the
I
first
didn't
part.
say the first part.
That's
What did I say?
Thank you.
Teach a man to fish.
No, give
Let's
him
give
a-
him
Give
a
it a fish.
feed him for a day.
Well,
Critical
fuck you.
listening.
All right. I gotta fix this. This is good. I gotta write these notes here. Finish that quote. All right. So, teach a man how to use Bitcoin, and you give him the most powerful tool for protecting his financial sovereignty and freedom that history's ever found. The world, humanity, there's nothing like it. What we are going to do, this is my aha moment that made me emotional when I came to it. And for like 4 hours, I basically just wrote notes, did everything. Any of you that know what I did, I sold half my company 2 years ago. And, to, at this point, idiots, right? But I've had all this time because they took a lot of operations off. And I've been kind of meandering. What do? I don't know what I want to do yet. Do I do this, whatever? And I realized that had to happen for me to even come to this realization, okay? So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna borrow this first. So let's pretend this is an iPhone 6, right? Did anybody have an iPhone 6? I had one. I've had every iPhone, every number there is,
Same.
right? And usually I sell them back if I can, but a lot of times I find them in an old drawer, and like this, and I go Google the price, is this worth anything? It's usually not even worth the postage to send it to somebody, right? Some of them are. So what I want with this is I want you to give me your old phones, your old devices, internet connected. What we're gonna do, what Better Human Company is gonna do, is we're gonna preload it with a Lightning wallet. We're gonna put $25 to $50 in Bitcoin on it. We're gonna go to areas in need, Cuba, Afghanistan, Lebanon, Sudan, places that have hyperinflation, or that have no access to money at all, or places like Afghanistan, where women, if you have money, what happens to it? Does anybody know? Your brother takes it, your dad takes it. Women don't have property rights, right? We're gonna bring this to people. We're gonna say, here, if you don't have a phone, here's a phone. If you do have a phone, here's a USB drive. I'm gonna load up this Lightning app. I'm gonna fill it with sats, which is the small increment for Bitcoin, and I'm gonna teach you how to use this, right? Now, every time the US government prints money, you get richer, not poorer. Now, if you're trying to cross the border or get out of Afghanistan, nobody can take your money, nobody can freeze your bank accounts. You have your bank account here. And if you lose this, you remember 12 words, you have your Bitcoin forever. All you gotta do is get to an internet connected device. So we're gonna first start by getting donations for these. We're gonna load it, refurbish it, anything you have, headphones, like chargers. I was even thinking about like even just a case for a phone. If you have like an iPhone 6 and you're in Africa and your phone breaks or whatever, you know, that could be like life altering. You can't just go to the Apple store and get a new one. I want to bring financial sovereignty to humanity. And when you understand Bitcoin and you understand what that actually does for removing power from governments, you realize that Bitcoin is the most important technology there is today. It's the most amazing thing I've found in my life. And so in a place like Africa, there's 650 million cell phones, but there's not a lot of them using Bitcoin. So we can go there, and all we got to do is figure out what are the common phones. We send ambassadors on the ground, kind of like missionaries basically. We show them how to use Bitcoin. We have a donation fund where every person gets like X amount of sats. So we give you $25 in sats. Now you're good to go. Now you have an incentive to use this monetary technology, right? You have an incentive to maybe send this to someone else, store it, save it. Or if you have Afghanistan, or if you have relatives in Afghanistan, you can now send them money when they couldn't have had it before. This is why, sorry, I don't know whose phone this is. I'm like looking at your text messages. Popped up. This is why Bitcoin to me is the most important thing in my lifetime. And there's a couple ways to get involved, and then I'll open up for questions. We can talk for a little bit. Okay, so betterhuman.world if you want to get an email list, because I'm going to need donations, investors. I mean, we're going to do a lot of things there, a lot of big ideas. I can't even, how do I even put it into words? It's going to be amazing. And I want as many people involved as possible because it matters. It's probably the most important thing that I could do with my life. And obviously donation of anything that you have in your bin, give that to me. We'll refurbish it. We'll send it to someone in need. I have a cool idea where if you donate a phone, whoever gets that phone has to record a video for you thanking them, stuff like that, right? So I want to make, I don't want to say charity, because charity is kind of a loaded word, but I want to make direct impact work and connect it to capitalism to make something that's going to change the world and bring financial sovereignty to as many people as possible. So betterhuman.world, I got the podcast coming out, and thanks for listening. Woo! So I'll just do a quick Q&A. Anything related to that, Bitcoin, whatever, let's just get at it and we can talk about it. I threw in some big